the Evolution Security Podcast.
Welcome to the Evolution Security Podcast, where we give you the knowledge and live training to protect yourself, your family, and your country. This episode is brought to you in part by Tenacor. Tenacor is an American design, development, manufacturing, and training company building products that work. They are innovators that come from a law enforcement and training background with years of experience. We would specifically suggest that you look at the new Velo 4 AWIB holster. Everyone on this podcast owns one and uses it regularly. For 10% off your purchase, use the code EVOSEC at checkout. That's EVOSEC at checkout for 10% off. Lastly, if you like what you hear here, please give us a review. It really helps to keep up our ratings and get the word out to others. You can find us online on Instagram at EVOSECUSA and Facebook, also EVOSECUSA, or visit our website, evosec.org. That's evosec.org, where you can find bios of the staff and links to upcoming events and trainings.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Evolution Security Podcast. We have a really great guest for you, an interview with Mr. Cecil Burch from Immediate Action Combatives. But first, Eric Davis has something really important to cover.
No free man shall ever be debarred the use of arms. Thomas Jefferson, Virginia Constitution, Draft 1, 1776. So in the light of the recent shootings on DoD installations back in December, I thought I'd bring up a few points. So let's go back in history a little bit, back to 2009. Fort Hood, Texas. Nidal Hassan killed 13 individuals, service members, and civilians. 5 years later, another shooting on Fort Hood. 3 people killed, 14 people injured. And I would bet that those 14 injured were life-altering injuries. 2013, 12 people killed at a Navy yard in Washington, D.C. In December of last year, 2019, we had a shooting on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii where 2 DoD civilians were killed. And, just a few days later, a Saudi national in the Saudi military killed 3 people. Luckily, he was killed by police. So what does all this tell us? Well, it tells us that DoD installations are essentially gun-free zones, meaning gun-free zones that the military personnel are effectively disarmed. So one of the reasons that's a little bit confusing to me, most of the audience knows that I am a veteran. I'm an Army veteran, that is. Basically, when even privates, E1, E2, are deployed downrange, they are authorized a weapon, and in many cases, a loaded weapon, depending on what they're doing at the time. But suddenly, when forces redeploy back to garrison in the States, not even a sergeant major or a colonel, or, I won't go above colonels right now, they're disarmed. They aren't they are not worthy, or they're not qualified for some reason. That's the mentality, to be able to carry a weapon. There is one fact that not a lot of folks are probably tracking, and that's DoD Directive 5210.56, arming and the use of force. This is dated November 18th, 2016. Now, I have to be honest, I had known about this directive for some time. Now, I've seen various writings on it, some that came out in official channels. This was the only one that I could find online at the time that was relevant. So let me skip to the relevant portion here. 4.3 Qualifications for personnel carrying privately owned firearms. A. Specific eligibility. Requests to carry firearms or privately owned firearms for personal protection purposes not related to the performance of official duties within buildings on DoD property may not be granted unless the arming authority makes a determination after consultation with servicing legal counsel and in accordance with applicable DoD policy that the request falls within an exception under Section 930D of Title 18 U.S.C. The arming authority's determination should be reflected in the information included in the written permission document under paragraph 4.2A1. B. General eligibility. Arming authorities should consider the criteria in this section when determining whether to permit DoD personnel to carry a privately owned firearm for a personal protection purpose not related to the performance of official duties on DoD property. Criteria for consideration includes, and I'll just kind of breeze on these a little bit. Age. DoD personnel should be 21 years of age or older. Discipline status. Essentially, they should not be in any kind of disciplinary status, under UCMJ or the various military uniforms of code of military justice, so on and so forth. There should be no criminal civilian charges as well. Training. Demonstrated competence with a firearm through any governmental or police agency or DoD, state, local, or tribal government approved firearm safety or training course, or any firearm safety or training course or class available to the public offered by a law enforcement agency, college, private, or public institution or organization or firearms training school, EvoSec, just a little plug there, including online, conducted by a state-certified, state-approved, or other nationally recognized and certified firearms instructor, or that has been certified by another credible institution. So I'll go ahead and end that piece there as far as reading from the directive, but I'll just say this. A lot of folks know I still work for the military. I am very concerned that at least the soldiers or military personnel, Marines, Navy, so on and so forth, they have no means to protect themselves, and we seem to have what seems to be a pattern, and in many cases with a terror motive. So what I would ask you guys to do in the audience is to start asking questions. I know I'm going to be pushing. I'm going to be pushing on this again because bottom line is I believe that the Pentagon answered the request of the population and lawmakers to say, hey, we have a means for military personnel and DoD personnel to carry firearms for personal protection, just to maybe, assuage those of the individuals in the United States that want that. I mean, I know I want it because I feel absolutely vulnerable when I go back and forth to work each day. I'm disarmed. So, and I know a lot of military personnel feel the same way. So, I mean, I can't help but think that if these facilities were known to have concealed carry, which, let's face it, that's exactly what this directive talks about, is concealed carry. So those situations would probably not have happened. There's a high likelihood that they would not happen. So I just wanted to kind of bring that DOD directive up and, kind of give some food for thought on it, because it's very important. I think that at a minimum, I've kind of relented and said, okay, if they're not going to allow that, well, at least allow commanders and first sergeants and sergeant majors to be armed. That'll certainly be a deterrence. So anyway, that's my soapbox on that. So we'll go ahead and move on and get ready for our interview. Cecil Burch of Immediate Action Combatives is a lifelong martial artist since the age of 16. Some of the systems that he has trained in over the years are Jeet Kune Do and Filipino martial arts under Dan Inosanto and Paul Vunak, Muay Thai, boxing, Savate, and Pencak Silat, just to name a few. Currently, Cecil focuses on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and is a black belt under the legendary Megaton Diaz. He is a member of the ShivWorks Collective, a consortium of the industry's best thinkers and instructors in integrated martial arts, combining combat sports modalities with modern weapons, incorporating stress inoculation and force-on-force pressure testing. Please listen to this incredible interview with Cecil Burch.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm here with Eric and Aaron as usual, but we've got a wonderful guest here. We have Mr. Cecil Burch of Immediate Action Combatives. How you doing tonight, Cecil?
Pretty good. Looking forward to chatting with people who want to chat about the same things I love to talk about.
Oh, man. Well, and we'll know more when the night's over, but we definitely, you're one of the guys we like to follow and watch what you're doing. So for those of us, we all have a pretty good idea of what you do and what you're about. But if you want to give us, a couple minutes of, where you started, where you came from, and who you are, go ahead and give our listeners an idea of who Cecil Burch is.
Sure. So my brand name is Immediate Action Combatives, and I've been doing some form of hand-to-hand fighting for 40 years now. There's not been a gap in training for that. I've been studying under a teacher, instructor, mentor at some point over those 40 years. And at this point, I can't even keep track of how many systems and fighting arts I studied at this point. Japanese, Korean, tons of Chinese systems like Bajichuan and Xingyi and all these weird esoteric stuff, a ton of Filipino martial arts, Indonesian martial arts, just a ton of like modern eclectic, street fighting combative stuff. Pretty much the last 20 years or so, I focused what a lot of people call combat sports, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, and wrestling. And when I say boxing and wrestling, it's just umbrella terms. I mean, Thai boxing, Savate, judo, sambo, that kind of stuff. And I focus on that because they work. I don't have to take anything on faith, right? There's no, this was used to kill Nazi sentries in World War II. Great, doesn't help me. This protected villages 300 years ago in Southeast Asia. Great, doesn't help me. I know what it's like to punch somebody, choke somebody, hit them with the planet, and I've had that done to me, so I know what it works. So that's what I've been focused on. And then also about the last 20 years, I'm trying to figure out how to integrate that into, this modern self-defense paradigm with, the possibility of weapons being present on either side or both sides, good guy, bad guy, or both, maybe multiple opponents, and then the legal issues too. You still have to, just because you're punching or choking somebody doesn't mean you can just go, oh yeah, no problem. You still got to deal with the legal stuff. I've done a lot of competition stuff, mostly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I did a little judo, little savate, little boxing. I fought in some smokers back in the 80s. I'm doing that, and I've been teaching since '87. I've been doing open enrollment roadshow seminars for this is my 15th year, I think. And that's about it.
Excellent, Cecil. Well, I think I'm sitting here thinking back. I think you and I have only trained together maybe once. It was in the ECQC in 2010, right? That was the only time we've got actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I wanted to say outright was thank you so much for putting that together, because, I mean, that was the first time that I was able to train with Craig Douglas for the audience for ECQC. I mean, that really changed me greatly, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, you bet. I'm glad you came out. I mean, it was you had to still schlep across the country to come do it. So, I'm glad you did. That was a fun class. We had some good people in that class.
Oh, absolutely. It was a great class, and boy, was it enlightening. And, for my first ECQC, seems to be the record. I don't know that it just started back then, but for my first 2-on-1, I draw you, whom's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and Rich Daniels, who's a very experienced martial artist, for my first 2-on-1. That kind of stunk. Yeah, I remember one of the things that I took away from that was, number one, I did not remember much of that until I actually saw the video. Number two, the timing rule that Craig speaks about, and all of us that are in this genre of training, the timing rule was definitely present in that, where I got my weapon out too soon in the fight, and the rest of it was me fighting over my gun between you and Rich pinning me against a truck, and that was definitely not the way to go out.
Yep.
So that said, Cecil, what did that happen? Was that your first ECQC as well, or?
Oh God, no! I've been training with Craig since 2005.
My apologies. I don't think we ever talked about that. But what was your biggest takeaway? I will just ask you this way: what was the biggest takeaway from your first ECQC?
Probably the first one that plugging in all this extra stuff, weapons, multiple opponents, it's not something that you can just plug and play. It's not an easy transition. I don't care what your skill set is. Yes, if you already have an exceptional fight hand-to-hand skill set, and maybe you're an exceptional shooter, yeah, you're going to have a bit of an easier time, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. You still have to put a lot of time into working it, studying it, understanding it, finding somebody who can point out a lot of things that you'll miss. My first ECQC was actually a private ECQC that Craig ran me through. I was the only student, and my opponents was the Tulsa training group, right? Mike Brown, Fat SB, Sergeant Jeff, Dave Pyle, all these guys who had been doing this stuff, and Craig was like, "Here you go, Cecil, show me what you got." And that was a pretty interesting day for sure.
Well, let me say this: was also Brandon Bennett. Was he a part of that as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
man, I hated going. I had 2-on-1 with Brandon and Mike.
Oh, that was that seems to be just like my situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys. I actually, part of our background too. I was under Gibson's martial arts. I had my instructorship there, and I told this story on a show or two ago that Brandon Bennett was my last sparring round, and it was an MMA round, and he beat the daylights out of me.
Yeah. Brandon's a good guy and a good martial artist. That is for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to dominate the discussion, but it's kind of hitting on that ECQC and that experience that I had there. The carjacking Evo that we did there was extremely enlightening, And again, I drew you for that, so jiu-jitsu in a vehicle. And I seem to remember getting a knot on my head from the pistol.
I'm sorry about that. I apologize for that. I got a little irritated that my sim gun jammed because I was going to light you up. I was going to mag dump into the back of your head, and then that dang gun jammed. So then I remember grabbing your gun out of your waistband. I'm like, oh, I'm going to light him up, and then your gun jammed, and then I was like, God dang it! And so I got a little overexcited when I started hitting you on the head, and it went right through the seam of that fist helmet. I'm sorry about that, dude.
Hey, listen, Cecil, you know that all that adrenaline, it really didn't hurt. I mean,
oh, that's good.
I felt it, but in all honesty, Cecil, I just wanted to bring that up because that's a good memory story, But one thing that definitely stuck out is that is vastly different than I believe that anybody would fathom. Is fighting in the confines of a vehicle, and I'll kind of ask the same question. What was your takeaway from fighting within the vehicle?
Well, I've been working with Craig about almost from the beginning when he started doing it and doing a lot of work in it. And the thing that one of the first things that became overwhelmingly noticeable was that jiu-jitsu now becomes a 360-degree environment, and trying to get your gun out, trying to fight, trying to adjust when the guy is not just on top of you, but he's got his feet pushing against the passenger door, driving into you like a battering ram. Things are completely different. People don't realize, most vehicle shooting classes are that shooting classes out of a car. Okay, here's the target outside the window. Okay, go. You get your gun out, you turn in your seat, fire a bunch of rounds. Okay, that's cool. And I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's an important skill set. But that extra part where, hey, the fight's actually inside the car, not just outside it. Man, if you've never done it before, you are not going to figure it out in the heat of the battle. I'm going to tell you that right now. That guy starts to drive into you. I don't even know how many hours Craig and I have just screwed around in the car trying to do stuff. And it's like, hey, what if you do this? What if you push your foot on the ceiling and the seat back, and then do this with the seat belt, stuff like that. It's, people don't even think about that kind of stuff, and it just becomes a completely unique game. It's been fun.
Well, I would say that just like you said, it becomes 360 degrees, and the way that jiu-jitsu functions in the vehicle, absolutely totally different. There's some applications that are similar, but man, it is crazy how different it is. I agree with that.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, hey, Cecil, that's interesting that you bring up the seatbelt thing, because we just spoke with Craig recently, and he talks about how all of this training we do being a seatbelt, hopefully you'll never use it. It's a device that's meant to protect you. It's training that's meant to protect you. But just like a seatbelt, if you put one on 2 weeks ago, it won't protect you in a crash today. And that's the kind of stuff we want to help, cement and remember, is that we got to keep this stuff fresh, or it definitely goes stale very quick.
Oh, absolutely.
So all of us in EvoSec train in jiu-jitsu. Can you give us a little insight and provide a dive into your immediate action jiu-jitsu course?
Sure. So my foundational coursework, the stuff that I teach most when I travel, is I got immediate action jiu-jitsu and immediate action pugilism, which is a slight misnomer. So the pugilism class is a day of stand-up. It's how not to get knocked out, and then how to deal with the standing clinch, the entanglement. The immediate action jiu-jitsu course is the same thing, essentially, only now we're horizontal. We're on the ground. So it's not trying to turn people into jiu-jitsu players, though I'm very happy to do that. You can't do that in a weekend course, but it's essentially, hey, you found yourself on the ground through no intent of your own. You didn't want to be, but you're there. What do you do? And then it's just basically using the conceptual framework and principles of jiu-jitsu and try to get it across to people. My assumption and a lot of that with a lot of, actually, it's not just an assumption, it's a fact. Most of the people I get, the overwhelming majority, have little to no grappling experience, sometimes little to no hand-to-hand experience. So I need to kind of start at zero. But by the end, people are up and running. By the end, you're both sides, bad guy and good guy are strapped up with weapons and are fighting for it. And I make you start in a really bad position and fight your way out of it. So it's sort of that, what I think's the most fundamental important stuff to surviving on the ground is basically as close as much as I can wrap it up in a 9-hour course.
Cecil, Aaron here. Real quick then, besides jiu-jitsu, what is it that you try to focus on most in your training?
Me or what I tell people to
you
focus
definitely
on? Me?
you.
It changes, right? Because we have so much stuff to work on. We have so much stuff that we need to be working on and improving, and at the very least maintaining. So it's sort of a change every 4, 6, 8 weeks. I'll change out the block. So right now, so Larry Lindemann and I, we made a pact of about a month ago. We decided we're both going to be fighting in Master 6 Division and Jiu-Jitsu, the IBJJF tournament, and we're going to do the Masters Worlds together at the end of August. So my focus right now, really dialing in jiu-jitsu, really, starting to work that. And then I got to work my cardio. The last year has been a little tough on me health-wise. I've had a couple of things come up, and so my cardio is not where it should be. So I've really been hitting that really hard. And I'll probably do that through February till the weather starts to warm up. And then I'll probably cycle over to a maintenance thing on the cardio and kind of do maybe an 8-week block on strength. And then at the same time, I kind of made this decision. I wanted to do it last year and it didn't work out, but I'm definitely going to do it for 2020 is I want to kind of tweak my handgun shooting. I kind of think I'm like a 3-stripe blue belt with a pistol. It's pretty good. I'll handle most things, but I'm going to shoot for maybe 3-4 stripe purple belt, maybe even a brown belt. That's what I'm kind of shooting for. So the problem is I just don't have time. So I can't just say, go to the shooting range today, because I don't have access to a good range close by. So I have to plot it out. So I've basically plotted out 2020 with here, I'm going to hit a live fire training session once a month, and I'm going to shoot a USPSA class once a month. Not a class, sorry, a match.
I was just about to ask if you did any competition, which is an excellent way to dial in shooting skills in a quicker fashion.
Absolutely, I am 100% a believer. You're never going to be able to dive as deep into getting yourself better as you do when you're working up for a competition. So, and it's a good way to make sure that I do it, right? If I say I'm going to show up at a match, I don't want to be the last guy on the tally list. Here's Cecil at the bottom of the score. So I better have my act together, and I better be making sure, I dry fire about 5 days a week. But, I got to really make sure I'm focused on that. So that's sort of that's my current plan right now. So that's probably going to take me through end of February, and then I'll start to make tweaks on it.
Good work, man. It's nice to hear that you. We were talking about this earlier at my gym, where if you just do the exact same thing day in, day out for years on end, you're not really honing some of those skills instead of having like a focus like you're talking about. I just started a strength cycle in barbell, and that'll be my focus for the next 8 weeks, and then I'll probably go back to trying to get a stripe in jiu-jitsu. And and then again, when the weather cleans up a little, I have great access to a range, but I'll tell you what, today I don't want to be outside. It's horrible out there. And not that we never train in the rain, but that's not what you want to do all the time. But so back to where you were about to head. We speak on the show about having the complete defensive package. So in your teaching, what do you believe to be the crucial elements of a complete defensive package? Like, which modalities do you believe people really should be training in regularly?
Whoa, wow. Good Lord, you don't throw any easy softballs, do you?
Well, if you were to suggest, for somebody, maybe even think about somebody starting out. How many? What things would you say? Here's a good place to begin.
Well, you know what? I wrote an article on my blog about that years ago because a lot of times we try to say, oh, hey, here's the ideal. Here, you should do this. All right, started at a jiu-jitsu gym. Okay, well, I don't have a jiu-jitsu gym within an hour and a half of me. So what do I do? I think you need to find what's going to be the most convenient that you can start with now. Whatever it is. Oh, the easiest thing, join a gym. The easiest thing, buy a kettlebell. The easiest thing is to go to the shooting range. Whatever. Oh, hey, Tom Gibbons is coming and doing a shooting class next month at my home gym or my home range. Great. Something like that. Whatever you start with. But because you got to cover, right? You got to cover the pre-fight. I call it pre-fight threat containment. You got understanding how criminals think, operate, act. Obviously, how to get yourself deselected, understand how criminals select victims so you don't fit in that profile. And that's work, right? You gotta research that. You gotta study with that. You gotta go, you gotta listen to like William April and understand those kind of things. Obviously managing unknown contacts, which I think is that's probably the best starting point for every single person who wants to work self-defense. Then you also have to deal with things like legal issues, right? Understanding what you can and can't do, because last thing you do, I do everything great, but I light this guy up at the wrong time and now I'm in jail. Kind of defeats the purpose. So you need to do that. A medical, right? You got, here's my one thing with medical, and this is my own pet peeve, but everybody's always focused on, the field medicine, dirt medicine, tack medicine stuff, tourniquets and pressure bandages, which is great. And you need that for sure. But nobody ever talks about the basic first aid stuff. Nobody ever talks about CPR. Nobody ever talks about learning how to operate an AED machine. I think doing a field medicine class and carrying tourniquets and not understanding how to do CPR or, just those basic things. That's kind of like strapping on a gun with a CCW and don't do anything else, right? You're just kind of isolated. So you got to do that. Obviously, I believe in hand-to-hand stuff. That's something I believe in. I think you need a little, jiu-jitsu. Grappling. I think grappling works. It does. Other things, I'm a fan of OC spray, knife, small impact weapons. I think fitness. I think you got to have a reasonable level of fitness. Not even for fighting, for sure. Right? Oh, my fights only last 3 seconds. Well, you don't know that for sure. And even then, those 3 seconds will feel like combination of a marathon and 10 sprints at the end of it. So you better be in shape. But it's just good for life anyway. So, I think you got to have, what am I leaving out? Oh, driving, if you can possibly. I remember talking to Todd Green about this years ago, and we had this discussion, and he actually was the first one who kind of broached to me, goes, Cecil, actually, before we do anything, we probably should really make sure we're really good drivers and understand stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Even above medical, because most of us, I don't remember the last time I've actually had to use CPR or use a AED machine or a tourniquet. but I've been driving. I was on the road today about 3 hours closer to 4 hours today. So, I mean, all that kind of stuff, you kind of have to, that's why this is so hard. That's why it's so hard I think that's why you have to work in blocks, right? Okay, I'm going to do this 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. Because not only are you learning and improving, then you still got to figure out maintenance too. So, I mean, that's probably the hardest part. And then of that, I think what for you as your person, what's the easiest, most convenient thing you can start out right now? Hey, Red Cross, every city in the country's got a 8-hour Red Cross first aid class multiple times a month. It costs about $100. That's easy. Get that stuff done. Just little things like that. Oh, here's what I'll say. Here's the most important thing. Just start. I don't really care what you start at. I don't care. You want to do jujitsu? Awesome. One of us. Great. I love that. But just start. Don't sit there and what do they call it? Paralysis by analysis or whatever. Don't worry about it. Just pick something. Pick one of those things and start. I don't care.
Nice. I really like you bringing up the basic first aid stuff, because as much as we want to be gunslingers and problem solvers with our hands and our tools and like you say, carrying tourniquets, you are probably 10 times more likely to be in the presence of a heart attack than the presence of a wound requiring a tourniquet.
Yep.
Totally.
100%.
Totally.
Heart attack, stroke, drownings, right? So in Phoenix, like every house has a pool. Like every house. We have every summer it's epidemic that a number of kids drown. Sometimes they die, sometimes they're saved. But we have tons of drownings. Man, I think you need to understand how to take care of that and recognize those symptoms and figure out how to deal with it right away. Because that's just percentage-wise, that's more likely. So I don't know, but nobody ever talks about that because that's not sexy, right? Because you can't, I carry a tourniquet. Cool. I carry a pressure bandage. Cool. I'm ready to stop bleeding. Yeah. Do you know how to run this AED machine? What is that? Because it's just not cool. So I wish it was a little bit more cool.
Well, Cecil, Eric here again. The fact that you mentioned the AED and CPR, mine has expired. I need to get that redone again. I actually took that over in Iraq the last time. So
that's cool.
So, I try to pick up whatever medical I can get whenever. But, you hit on something that I think is crucial, is it can be daunting. Those of us that train in these methodologies that we try to hit most of the areas. I mean, you enunciated, in my opinion, basically everything that folks should be working on for a full defensive package. That was a really excellent answer, by the way.
Thank you.
So, kind of circling back, kind of to some of the same subjects with jiu-jitsu and a weapons-based environment.
Sure.
So, we just started teaching our classes, and we envisioned our kind of our flagship course called ESS1 that will be kind of ECQC light, if I can use that term, to try to get people in the door. So it kind of leaned more towards functional pistol skills that, of course ECQC is a shooting class as well, but most everybody's kind of expected to come to that course with some basic shooting skills and knowledge of shooting from the holster. So we did it a little bit more heavy into that piece. And then we add MUC, or managing no known contacts. We also, use the clinch portion, so on and so forth. But I think what we're really trying to aim for is 4-hour blocks, 2 to 4 hour blocks, and our ESS1 course just will still offer that, but it takes longer to do that course than what we're kind of aiming towards. Have you heard Carl Wren's philosophy on that? I don't know if you have or not.
As far as what? I talked to Carl. Yeah, I know Carl really well.
As far as using like the 2 to 4 hour blocks or 8-hour
blocks.
Yeah. So we're
for sure.
Frankly, we took a lot of influence from that, and trying to do it from a local level. So,
Sure.
without bloviating too much, I guess what I'm getting at is we also see that there's a need for basic jujitsu. For folks that have never had it nor have really wanted to go to a gym. Now, granted, I'm still a blue belt. These days, it seems like I'm the forever blue belt. I'm working towards my purple belt after an injury, but would you have, like those of us that are firearms instructors and have a jiu-jitsu background, do you see that as still fine for those of us that want to teach a basic course, survivability positions, all the basics in like a 4-hour block? What do you think about that principle?
Oh, I'm all for it. I think, it's funny. For an incredibly long period of time, it was a handful of us. We were like voices in the wilderness, right? Me and Craig, the guys in the collective, right? And then a couple others, Greg Ellifritz, a couple of, we're out there. Hey, you should look at this. This is an important thing. And people are like, boo, hiss, you suck. You're a Nazi. You're stupid. And fighting against that for so long is just kind of draining. And it's a fairly recent turn. It's not like it's been that long. Now everyone's coming out of the woodwork to do it. But that's fairly recent. I mean, you kind of felt it turn about 2012, 2013-ish. But it was kind of we talked a lot. It's kind of depressing to get so much pushback. So when there's more people out there wanting to teach it and believing in this, and, we've got these allies out there that are teaching it, especially at the local level where, we can only do so much, right? I can only travel so much. I really, right now in my life, I've got about 20 slots a year that I can travel. And I can teach a handful of times here in town. That's about it. That's max. So I'm only going to reach X amount of people. Same with Craig. Same with everybody is the same way. So the more people who know this stuff, who have an idea and are authentically trying to do it, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Here's the only caveat I'd throw out there. And I don't want to sound curmudgeonly because this is not what it's about. But the only issue is, and you see this even in the firearms world, the gun-centric world with instructors, there's something that the last 5, 6, 7 years with new instructors coming out that a lot of them are like, if just the fact that they have a shingle out as an instructor, that they are now peers to guys like Tom Gibbons, Kyle Lamb, Craig Douglas. And yes, they have something to offer. Absolutely. And they may very well be the future of the community. Absolutely. But if you have only been shooting for 3 or 4 years and you've only taught about 10 people, you're not at that same level as these other guys. So it's not to say that your input's not important, but if one of them says, hey, you know what you should look at is this, you can't. I see too many people getting butthurt and their ego. Oh, but I'm this and I'm an instructor. Yeah, great. Awesome. Cool. But when did you start? Oh, well, I've been shooting since 2013. That's not what I said. When did you start teaching? The last year. All right. Well, Tom Gibbons been teaching since the 70s. Craig was teaching in this regional firearms academy in the 90s. I've been teaching since 1987. Larry taught tons of people at the Illinois State Police, tons of stuff, right? So all these guys, it's not that we're better than anybody else, but we've been doing it longer. So so you guys are all doing jujitsu, right? So you guys will see this. You probably have already seen it. How often do you go, okay, I've been training X amount of time. I'm really starting to get jujitsu. I'm starting to see things. And then you train a little bit longer, another 6 months, another 9 months. And then you go, oh, wait. Now I get it. That stuff I thought back then I was wrong. Now I'm getting it. I do that all the time. When I was a blue belt, I knew it. Man, I had jujitsu. I understood it. Then I got my purple belt and I was like, oh, I was stupid. Okay, now I really get it. And I try a little bit more. Now I'm a brown belt. Oh, I get it. I just got my 3rd degree in my black belt, and I'm still learning new stuff, and I'm still figuring out that my coach was just on me last Saturday for doing something that I should not have done, and I knew better, and I forgot. And after rolling with me, he's like, "Why are you doing that?" So I'm like, so my long-winded point is, it's great. I want to see new guys out there. I mentor a lot of new people out there. I mentor a number of instructors and people in the training community trying to do this stuff, and it's great. Just make sure that you understand that we all can get better at this, and we don't have just because you've taught a little bit doesn't mean you know a lot. You're a purple belt, you're a brown belt. Well, there's still like my coach. So my coach is a 6th degree black belt. He's been literally doing this since he was 3 years old. That is not an exaggeration. 50 plus years he's been doing this. Hodger Gracie called my coach the greatest competitor in IBJJF history. He said that in print. So my coach has been there, done that. He's the only person to compete in the World Championships as a black belt every year. 24 years. He's the only person that's done that. Caprito was the closest, and he was at like 22 or something. So my coach been there, done that, knows it all, and he's still looking for more stuff to learn. He's still out there going, hey, there's this new jiu-jitsu. We just had Hanato Canudo come to do a seminar at our gym for the post-Christmas party seminar that we do every year. And Meg was one of the first guys on the looking, staring at everything, learning everything Hanato had to say. And Hanato literally could have been Meg's son, but Meg's still like, hey, you got some information. So yeah, please, I want people out there teaching this. If you've been to ECQC, you're legitimately working at a gym, great. But if somebody's been there a little bit longer, says, maybe you should look at this. Don't be offended. Don't take it as an insult. It's just, we got to get better.
And Aaron, you got something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, kind of along those lines, Cecil, and then I want to get to the aspect of local instructors. But so I've played guitar. Often our audience will hear about us talking about music and me playing music. I've played guitar for 30 years or so, and it's my strongest skill. And I'm surrounded by guitars in here in my office, and every single morning I wake up early, an hour earlier than I need to go to work so I can practice. I'm currently taking lessons from my favorite guitar player in the world over the internet. In other words, every single thing that we do, there is a universe of knowledge that is endless.
Yep.
To get better in, to dial in this, to dial in that. Even to the ability of even holding your pick lighter or harder. I don't want to go too deep in that, but it's along those same lines that you're talking about. We can always learn. Now, regarding the aspects of local instruction, in my town, I'm really, really blessed to have people like Brandon Bennett and Mike Brown and Clinch Martial Arts. His instructor, Eric, forgive me, I can't remember Mike Brown's main instructor right now.
It's Christian Durr.
Christian Durr, yeah, that's right. There's a lot of amazing people here, especially when it comes to shooting. Mike has recently. I've been taking some private pistol lessons from him because I'm trying to dial in my competition shooting myself. But when you look around, when I look around in my town, there are some okay instructors when it comes to firearms and trying to put a lot of the not really integrated, because I'll tell you, I don't think I know of anybody in town besides Mike Brown that does any integration, firearms, grappling, etc. But for us, that's what we're trying to do. And honestly, it's about getting people into the ground level so we can push them to go ahead and get on a flight to go see you guys.
Yep, absolutely.
Because we believe so much in what Craig, Larry, Chris Fry, all the guys in the collective, and then people like Tom Givens and Paul Sharp. I'm just trying to think of everybody. There's so many good instructors in this country to learn from, but lots of people at the local level, for one thing, they aren't aware of them. And the other thing is they're not willing to spend the travel time and dollars like we are.
Right.
But if we can get them hooked, like Eric finally pushed me to take ECQC about 6 years ago. I was actually scared to go do it, to be honest, right? Now I'm hooked on it.
Right.
So if we can get some guys, or guys and gals at the local level learning how to clinch, learning how to use guard and side control, maybe they'll join a JITS gym after taking a 4-hour class from us, maybe, et cetera, a gateway kind of thing.
No, absolutely. Because especially I've had this, probably the only person who has a harder time. Actually, Craig's actually might be easier for Craig because he's got the back doorway in. People can go, well, at least I can shoot a gun in ECQC. At least I can get through that. But people are afraid. People have been afraid for a very long time to take any of my coursework, even though I go out of my way to go do this for anybody. Everybody can. This is scalable. You go as hard as you need to go or as light as you need to. I've had multiple guys in their 70s come to the class. I've had guys with multiple injuries, big injuries come to class. I've had 13, 14-year-old kids, girls who've never done anything come to the class. But still, it's hard. People look at it, oh my God, it's gonna be Fight Club. You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get beat up. And I'm like, no, but if there are more people like you guys out there trying to get this across the local community, go, look, see, it's easy. See, you can do this. It's not going to kill you. It's not that scary. And then they go, oh, you know what? It's not bad. I can do this, right? Everybody who does ECQC, they're all afraid. Oh, we're going to get beat up. And then you do ECQC and go, yeah, it was tough, but I survived. And you know what? I can do something again. So I'm all for guys like you guys out there pushing that envelope to do that.
And Cecil, what I'll add to that, Aaron said it perfectly. This is actually how this all was birthed, was because we thought about that. I read Carl Wren's book that spurred some of the thought process, but it was our concern that at the local level, people aren't pushing the full integration model, and that's how EvoSec was birthed for sure.
Yep. Agreed.
Now, speaking of getting people involved, I heard you on a recent show, and I really enjoyed this portion of the interview with you, and I'd like you to maybe expound on it a bit. You were talking about the normal person, what kind of jiu-jitsu gym they should look for. Could you go into that? Because I was actually surprised at your answer.
As far as what?
What the average person should look for in a JITS gym.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Generally, so I've kind of got a little checklist that I try to, like, I have a lot of people who will call me up. Hey, Cecil, I want to join a jiu-jitsu gym. Here's where I live. Here's a list of gyms in my area. Can you take a look for me? Do you know anybody or whatever? And if I don't know anything about them, the list I kind of look for is stuff like, what's the makeup of the school? I think that's a really big indicator of stuff. Is the class made up of a bunch of 25-year-old testosterone-soaked meatheads, all chomping at the bit and all going, hey, bro, can you shoot up the steroids into my butt for me? That's probably not a good environment for most of us to train in. It's certainly not going to be a healthy team environment for sure. So I like a makeup of, young, old, male, female. I like all that kind of stuff because it tells me that the instructor can handle a big group of diverse people and is not just geared for I'm teaching competition or I'm, whatever. I like that the students all joke with each other, that there's a good energy. It should be a palpable feel. of students in the class, that they get along and they're joking and that they train together. Because here's the thing about jiu-jitsu, man, you are trusting another person with your well-being every single minute you're training. You have to trust that that guy is going to respect the tap. He's not going to go ballistic. He's going to be in control. And so you want to see a group of guys who are ha, ha, ha. Yeah, I mean, if you're joking with guys, you've probably not somebody you worry about that he's going to forget to, pay attention to the tap. So I like that. I like that the instructor kind of has the same attitude with the students. Yeah, there should be respect and you should be listening to the instructor kind of thing, but he should be able to, communicate to the students in it should be a family. It should be a team family environment. So I like the instructor being able to talk to people. Personally, this is my own thing, but I tend to see that it pays off. Is lineage is important in jiu-jitsu. I think it's got a dirty word in martial arts in general, but in jiu-jitsu, I think it's a young enough art that kind of thing's important. It's where do you come from? Where'd you get your belt? Whatever your belt is, I don't care. But where'd you get it? Who did you train with? What's your experience level? Because somebody who got all their stuff online or at a couple seminars, you're not going to grasp jiu-jitsu the same way that, I trained with the guy face, 3, 4, or 5 days a week for 10 years. It's a different thing. The instructor have a mentor. Because like I said, jiu-jitsu is so vast. It's so deep. There's no way. I don't care who you are. You don't know everything in it. I got a black belt. I don't need anybody else. I'm my own. I'm an expert. No, dude. The black belt's literally this. You know what the black belt is in jiu-jitsu? The black belt is you've graduated high school. That's what the black belt is. Now you're going to go to a 4-year university. Then you're going to get a master's degree. Then maybe you get multiple PhDs, but you're just starting the journey at that point. So I think you should have a relationship with a mentor. I don't care if he wins or not. That's not important to me. But if you believe in yourself and you believe in your ability enough to show up at a big tournament, Pan Ams, where there's going to be literally the who's who of the jiu-jitsu world, and you're not afraid to step on the mat and at least compete. Okay, you lost. Okay, cool. I've lost more often than I've won in tournaments. I'll tell you that one. My batting average is probably right around 350 for tournaments. But it doesn't matter because you're willing. You go, I'm legitimate. People might see me lose, but they're not going to go, well, that's not jiu-jitsu. What's that? So I think if you kind of have, if you have a good chunk of that, you're probably at a pretty decent gym. I think you're probably going to be okay with where you're at. So that's just my general thoughts on it.
Fair enough. Well, I've got one question for you there. Have you been working on any new concepts or training directions that you'd like to expose our listeners to?
Like I said, my personal focus, I'm trying to get better at my own shooting. As far as new stuff, I've been working for a couple years on a game plan, a set of I hate saying it this way because it's not the way I mean to say it. A set of techniques based around a particular position that's pure jiu-jitsu, right? It works 100% great rolling with your buddy in a gi at the academy, but with no changes, no tweaks, no difference. It works 100% the same way in a weapons-based environment. And I've been playing with that because I think sometimes it's hard for beginners, for newer people, to understand the couple little mental tweaks you have to do in jiu-jitsu with your jiu-jitsu when you go to do that. But this way they can train on the jiu-jitsu mat and have it translate directly. They don't have to do, they literally don't have to do anything different. And it's a little bit, I kind of see it as a bridge to a deeper game. Like, oh, I do this, I can practice this all. I can go here in ECQC or Paul's class or something, do everything the same. Cool. Then you do that a little bit. Then you get a little bit deeper. And now you can look at the rest of jiu-jitsu and go, oh, I can do this here on the mat, and it translates like that. So I've been working on that. I kind of taught it publicly as sort of a beta test. I was at Paul's gym teaching a seminar back in September, and I kind of taught it to his guys. But I haven't formally done it. I'm thinking I might do it in January at a class I'm teaching in Pittsburgh. But that's kind of where I'm mostly at right now. I'm really fascinated with dialing in jiu-jitsu to where you can train it and you don't have to do any work at the alterations. I think that's a really good thing to be able to do.
Well, Cecil, when we were speaking the other day, when you told me about that, I was like, man, that's a great idea. And not only that, coming from a person with your level of experience in jiu-jitsu, that's what we need, frankly, in what we're trying to do. And, that's something that I promise you this, you coming on here and supporting us, and I've known you for many years. We tried to get you in at one point at my old gym, but for some reason, my old instructor was just wasn't interested in having other folks at his gym, or one that he didn't choose. I don't know what it was, but
yeah, that happens.
But frankly, I've got a lot of other contacts now, and actually, I bet you right now that gym, because that's where we host ECQC. I bet that they would let us use it again if it came right down to it. But anyway, what I meant to say is that we want to host you for sure, and I would love to do a course like that, or maybe it's part of immediate action. I'm not sure how that would work out, but
I'm not sure yet. Honestly, Eric, I'm not sure because, like I said, I'm still trying to get it across. I'm still trying to get it out there. I'm not sure how I want to plug it in. And like I said, I've been working on it for a while, but one of the reasons I wanted to do it in Chicago at Paul, because Paul was there and Larry was there. So not only were they kind of vetting the material, they were also vetting how I was teaching it. Because I think that's important. We can have great material, but if you teach it poorly, it doesn't matter. It's sort of irrelevant. So I think I've gotten to where I want it to be, but now I've got to figure out where it plugs in, because it's hard. I've had this discussion with Craig about ECQC. I'm like, Craig, you should teach this in ECQC. You should teach this. And he goes, yeah, Cecil, great. What do I cut out? Of the 20 plus hours. And I'm the same way. So I'm teaching 18 hours over 2 days, and it's full, dude. I sometimes have a tendency to forget to give breaks to students. We'll be working for an hour and a half, and all of a sudden there I see them starting to drag, and I go, oh, damn. We've been at this for an hour and a half. I better give them a 10-minute water potty break. So trying to figure out where I'm going to plug in 2 hours worth of material. I'm working on it. I'm trying. I'm working on it. We'll see what happens.
So what I would say is then probably the best model would simply be to just host you for immediate action jiu-jitsu, and then just maybe do a private, with the other material.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way we could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that works.
Well, segueing, and then I'm going to pass this on to Aaron. So back in, I'm going to sit here and mess up the time frame. It's probably close to 8 months ago, maybe 9 months ago. I got the opportunity to train with Paul Sharp. Knowing him for so many years, that was my first opportunity, and it was an incredible class. It was jiu-jitsu for the weapons-based environment, and it had a lighter pressure than ECQC, and that was another thing that made me think differently about how to offer modules, excuse me. Yep. But he said something in that course that was really interesting to me. Knowing that Paul used to fight professionally, I believe in boxing, was really serious about boxing, and
Very much.
he told me, or told the audience, I should say, we spoke further on it later, that he doesn't really prefer to do much in boxing or train in boxing anymore. And he said something that really stuck to me. He said, "I'd rather throw you and let the earth do my hitting for me."
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what is your thoughts? I mean, I don't think, frankly, a lot of the audience, if they know you, they may not know your level of boxing. Mike Brown described to me when he first trained with you doing boxing. Mike was a decent Thai boxer in boxing, and he said he couldn't put a glove on you. So what I would say is that what is your thought on it now? Because I think you've kind of changed your thought process on it as well.
Well, it's funny. It's really funny. And this shows you why we're the collective, not because we had some amazing business plan to figure out anything, but because we're weirdos who flock together because we think the same way a lot. And we operate the same way. So all of us, every one of us in the collective, we were all striking-centric martial artists. All of us, heavy, deep, striking-based. None of us started off as grapplers, right? So striking was our thing. And striking was a really important part of our game. But then as you start going, and this was all right around the same time. And partly it's because we're talking to each other. Hey, I'm finding this. What about you? Yeah, I'm finding it too. Well, blah, blah, blah. But we all were kind of come to this conclusion as we're all teaching it, is that for a weapons-based environment, there's a number of issues with boxing. So none of us really teach it anymore. None of us make it an important part of our curriculum. You have to remember, so a range striking game is really the distance where the range striking becomes a thing is about a step to a half a step away from where you can deploy a weapon. So why wouldn't I do that? Why would I go take the chance on trading hands when I get a more efficient tool out? So that's one thing that becomes a problem. Another, and this is probably the biggest mind shift we all had, was the problem is striking is not reliable or consistent in its results. It's just not. And if you think about it, physics and physiology tell you that. I don't care how hard you train. A 135-pound person is not going to be able to develop enough power to reliably do damage to a 235-pound dude. It's just not possible. I mean, you look at like Roberto Duran, one of the greatest boxers in history, technical, and you guys know what his nickname was?
I don't recall.
Hands of stone. So what does that tell you about his punching power? Probably could hit really hard, right? So here's a dude who's just slaying people left and right in boxing. He wanted a title of lightweight, junior welter, junior middleweight, and I don't remember if he won a middleweight championship or not. I'm not 100% sure. He may have. But you know what he never did? You know what he never fought for? Heavyweight. You know why? Because he knew even that journeyman tomato can heavyweight would probably knock him out, and he couldn't do anything about it. Here's Roberto Duran, arguably one of the certainly top 100 boxers in the history of boxing. Powerful puncher, a professional who does nothing but train and has enough power that he's called hands of stone, and he knows he's not going to be able to hurt the heavyweight, some slob overweight heavyweight who's got a record of 6-20. He's not going to be able to hurt that guy. So what chance does that middle-aged real estate agent have who's never done any striking before? I don't care how good an instructor you are. In a weekend course, you're not going to be able to teach him how to hit hard. I'm sorry. It's just not possible to do it. But you know what does work? That you can make that 135-pound person be effective at? grappling, the entanglement, controlling the entanglement. That's what the Gracies found. That's why they went to the ground. They didn't. It's funny, everyone, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, you're just going to the ground. You just plop to the ground. Yeah, you know why? Because it works. It works. When you take the guy down, you now take away a lot of gravity, you take away a lot of his standing leverage, and you get to use the ground to help you, to help your leverage, to help your mechanics, and you start to even the playing field. So now that 135-pound real estate agent now screws up and chokes out the 235-pound dude. And that can be taught and that can be worked. And this isn't me. This isn't hyperbole. This isn't BS. You go to any legitimate, you guys do jiu-jitsu, this is true. You can go to any legitimate jiu-jitsu gym anywhere in the world, any day of the week, and you'll see that that's true.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Why is in jiu-jitsu do we still have the open weight division? Right? Where any weight can fight anybody. Right. So you see, Caio Terra take on Bruno Bastos, right, with 100 pounds. And surprisingly, Caio Terra won. Right. Mackenzie Dern, my coach's daughter, 125 pounds, fight Gabrielle Garcia, 200 plus pounds, and won. Right. You don't have an open weight division in boxing. You know why? Because they don't want to kill anybody.
Well, and if I can add, Cecil, I cannot agree more. I mean, those of us that have been in jiu-jitsu a while know what it's like to see that. And I'll just use a purple belt as an example. That small, agile purple belt, that the biggest, especially the head-hunting white belts or even the head-hunting blue belts, that small, well-trained purple belt is gonna take them most of the time, And if I can also add, and I don't want to mess up his name, but I thought it was pretty amazing at ADCC this year in the absolute division, and I'm going to screw up his name, but is it Lachlan Giles, I believe, from Australia?
Yeah,
thank you
Giles.
very much for the correction. I mean, I thought that was an awesome story. He's a small dude, too.
Yep. He's a small guy. It's a great game, and that, so, that's the thing that, people who don't pay attention to jiu-jitsu and who just dismiss it because they're looking at the shell, they're not seeing this. It works, provably works. Doesn't mean it's a perfect solution in every context. Absolutely not. But for that consistency and reliability, the smaller person, you can beat the bigger person. So, that contributes. And then finally, here's what it comes down to, because all of us in the collective, we're getting old, right? And so all this striking we've done for 25, 30, 40 years, we're hurting. It hurts. That boxing, Thai boxing, Savate, I love Savate. That was my favorite striking system. I love Savate so much. But it's a lot of trauma to the body. Not just, you get hit in the head and you have brain damage and all that kind of stuff, for sure. But I'm talking about the actual striking, the actual hitting part. My shoulders, my elbows, they're not jacked up from jiu-jitsu. They're jacked up from striking. So both the supporting tendon ligaments on both my wrists are severed on both of them. And it's from striking for, 30 plus years of striking. So, I mean, there are days like last night actually rolling, I'll get the bones in my wrist will shift around and it just becomes excruciating. That's not jiu-jitsu. That's from striking. So, you put all this together and it's just like, it's just not as important. Should you have some striking? For sure. You definitely need to understand and be able to deal with getting hit so you don't get knocked out. For sure. Absolutely. And if we weren't in a weapons-based environment, if we lived in Japan or the UK, where we weren't blessed with the ability to actually defend ourselves with extra tools, you know what? Then we'd have to put more time into striking. But you know what? We live in the USA. Yay. And so I'm going to use those extra things. I'm going to carry a pistol when I can. I'm going to carry a knife when I can. I'm going to carry a sap when I can. I'm going to carry OC spray when I can. And have the hand-to-hand skills to back that up just in case. And so, I mean, that's really where it goes. Boxing's great. It's just, I don't think of all these modalities we need to worry about in our paradigm. I think it's on the lower end of priorities. That's how it is. But all of us, like I said, all of us has gone through that same evolution. Craig's done it. ECQC of 2004 looks far different than ECQC of 2019. My classes, my first course that I did in Tulsa for Mike does not look anything at all like it looks right now. So, so we're all evolving, and we just come to the thing where we've seen it. We've got enough students. We have enough real world feedback of our students going, you know what works? Controlling the entanglement, either standing or on the ground. That's what works reliably, consistently. Oh, and here's the important part too. For most people, for the everyday guy, you're going to train 5 hours a day, 5 days a week? Cool. That's not who I'm focused on. I'm focused on the guy who maybe can squeeze out 2 or 3 hours a week of all of this shooting, fitness, jiu-jitsu, all that kind of stuff. That's who I'm concerned with. And for that guy or girl, sorry, I don't mean to be a misogynist about this, but for that person, the control grappling is better. Grappling works better. It's more consistent. So boxing's great. All the boxing arts, it's just, again, lower down on that, that pyramid.
Yeah, I love hearing what you have to say about that, Cecil. The fact that you guys actually have basically the human laboratories of what works. I don't want to digress into this, but, on one of my gear forums, there's this martial arts discussion and these guys bagging on jiu-jitsu, and it was just amazing, just what they don't know. But that's a story for another day. That there's been arguments over whose kung fu is best, since Musashi, right? So,
yep. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take this in a little bit different direction. I'm starting to think of this section of the show as the "What's your favorite color?" section of the show.
Okay, all right.
So we understand you're a strong family man, and that just kind of leads into a question about what is your favorite non-martial arts thing to do, hobby or way to spend your time?
Probably doing something with my family. I have a phenomenal wife who's far better than I deserve, and I got 2 bitchin' kids, both who I pray to God never hear this podcast and hear me say that. One's downstairs right now wrapping Christmas presents, and I hope he can't hear me talk about how awesome he is. I'm fortunate that both my kids are adults and they somehow like spending time with me, which is pretty cool. So we just did, we went to the Phoenix Zoo. They do like a big lighted holiday thing. And we just did that Tuesday night. I love doing stuff like that. Going to see the movies. Both my kids and I have a ritual. Every new Marvel movie that comes out, we see it on opening night. We usually see it, like midnight, even on a Thursday night. My daughter and my son will both meet me. And they're adults, but it's a kind of a cool thing. So I love doing stuff like that. We try to have an annual vacation together. We usually go somewhere, all of us, and my kids, significant others. Stuff like that's fun. I like cooking when I have time. I just don't have time, very often. I got a couple, I have a bunch of things I like to cook, but it's usually, oh man, I got one weekend home and I have no other things pressing kind of thing for the most part. So, I mean, that's, and I read. Oh, I read a lot. That's my thing. I read.
Awesome.
People are always giving me a hard time. Oh, Cecil, did you see the latest episode of Mad Men or Game of Thrones? Nope. Why not? How can you? Because I was reading. I'm sorry. I'd rather read for the most part than watch shows and stuff. So I usually read about 3 or 4 books at a time. The only skill that I ever actually had that I was good at was reading fast. I read really fast. It was just that way from the beginning. It wasn't like any plan. It just was. So I like reading a lot. That's my thing.
Awesome. I wish I could read a lot faster than I do, but that's all right. I also hear that you love ice cream. What about that?
That's true. That's true. That's true. I wish it loved me back. But that's I do love ice cream. I have to watch it, especially because I've dropped a weight class because I want to fight at medium heavy. So I got one more weight class to cut by next August. So I've got to watch my intake of ice cream now, not doing as much. So most of the time I save my ice cream for traveling. That's why I tell you what, one of the main draws for when I go to Oklahoma or Texas, because I can hit Brahms.
Ah, yeah.
I love, man, all my hosts, like Guy Schnitt and my host in Dallas, he knows. How many times do you want to hit Brahms this weekend, Cecil? Well, at least twice.
There's some good stuff at Brahms. My son was even thinking about getting a job there. He's about to turn 14 and he's already looking for a job. So that's awesome.
I could never, man, if I was a teenager, I could not ever worked at a place like that because I'd have been 450 pounds. I'd been like that character in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory that blew up to like the big round. They had to roll her out. That would be me at Brahms. Cecil's got 200 pounds of butter pecan ice cream in him.
Awesome. Well, now we had Craig Douglas on the show a couple of episodes. Yeah. And he told a pretty interesting story about doing what he referred to as a tactical makeover. Now, how did that go?
All right. Well, first, I'm going to say this. First of all, he was what I said when I came out of the dressing room. I did not say I look good. What I said was I look like effing James Bond because that's the sell, right? Okay, I look good, whatever. Who cares? But we all want to be James Bond, right? We all want to be playing cards in Monaco with a hot chick on our arm and get ready to shoot Blofeld in the face with a PPK, right? So I look at myself when I come out of there and I'm like, God dang, I'm James Bond. All right. Because here's the thing. Yes, I was grumpy and mouthing off to him when he's throwing this stuff to me. Because what he didn't tell you was, oh, that shirt was $250. Oh, those jeans were $200. That jacket that I did look really good in, it's like $500. So I'm thinking, great, Craig, are you going to whip out your credit card to do the tactical makeover, or do you expect me to do this? But it was good. I mean, I always dressed nicely because I had to for my day job, for work. I have to dress nice. But I didn't enjoy it. And I settled for whatever decent thing was there at the department store, or whatever. Whereas what Craig did was he helped me to understand that if you get something that's made for your body style and it's cut for you and you're paying attention to the fabrics, that not only do you end up looking good, you feel good in it. And when you feel good, then you enjoy doing that kind of stuff. So I was already dressing nice, but the makeover was really learning to enjoy it and do it the right way and understand why all this works together and be willing to pay money for it. I'm frugal as hell, but I learned that for some stuff that you do pay more money. And the main thing that he got me to do was pay attention to how I dress when I travel. I do have to say, I used to dress like a slob whenever I was flying anywhere because I want to be comfortable. But I learned that, if you're dressing well, properly, you are comfortable and you look a hell of a lot better. And you get good stuff when you're traveling and you dress well. I've gotten multiple upgrades on flights. I've gotten through TSA lines. They've let me jump through and go, oh, you come through this line because I look well, I look nice, and I'm a nice person. And I smile and I talk to those people. Oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, yeah, it looks like you're busy today. Oh, yeah, I am. Here, go through this line over here. So that I have to say, as painful as this is, yeah, Craig got me to do that. I hate that. I hate admitting that he's right ever.
I love that you bring that up because we didn't really go down the dress part. This is something we talked a little bit with William April about, is noticing the social changes for the context in which you appear and come off. And this is nothing short of social engineering. And I do it all the time in my job. You know, I'm in sales, and when I talk to people, I handle them in a certain way, and I get what I want. And it's
Yep,
amazing. It is.
absolutely.
That's something we could have an entire show on all by itself. But one of the other things
Yep.
we kind of like to ask everybody that comes on is, and a lot of the times is just to hear your answers so we can rib each other because we have our own predetermined likes. But what does your EDC kit consist of? What is your typical daily pocket fill?
So I got two. So I have to have two separate ones. My Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5:30, and then the rest of the time. So my Monday through Friday day job one is I usually rock two pocket shields, one in each pocket of my pants, and I've got a clinch pick in one, and I've got a special circumstances push dagger in the other. I've got a surefire stiletto light. I've got this really cool Kershaw folding knife as my utility knife that I carry in with it. And I always have a tourniquet. And then I've got, as much as possible, I've got a small sap that I can usually hide in my back pocket, even in dress slacks. So that's my dress stuff. And I may or may not, nobody can prove this, I may or may not be carrying a snubby in some configuration in that as well. Maybe, I don't know. Could be. Nobody can ever prove it. And then during the week, then I usually switch it out. I got a clinch pick, usually on the belt, and then I mostly have been carrying a Beretta PX4 compact. I've been running that for the last couple years. That's such a sweet gun. Lately, but the last month or so, I've been running, as painful as this is to admit, I've been running a Glock 19X, which I feel so dirty carrying a Glock, but I've been doing that. I've been playing with that. See, all you lemmings. Ooh, we're gonna follow Gaston. You know, like Gaston's got enough hooker and blow money. He doesn't. Yeah. Oh, there we go. See, that's something I was toying with too.
10
Craig
rounds.
Craig and I and a couple other guys in the collective, we were kind of talking about the 365. We're kind of talking about that as almost the do-it-all thing. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet on it, so to speak. I shot one. I hosted Chuck Haggard for a class out here last spring, and Rob Hott, I don't know if you know him. He's like the shotgun guru guy on the planet. He came to the class and he was running a 365. That's a sweet little gun.
And Jason Kelly and one of my good friends who's Oregon State Patrol and also like on their HRT and getting to go ready for SWAT. Both those guys have been playing with the XL too. And you throw the 12 round mag in the XL, it's still smaller than a Glock 48, but has all that, it's a great gun. Really is.
I was running for a long time. I was running a Walther PPS, the first gen. I love that thing. That such a great gun. I took care of so many issues. The only reason I really stopped was because they dropped it.
No longer a current product.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't really, I worry about that kind of stuff. Something goes bad, something happens, even they even redesigned the magazines for the Gen 2, which I'm like, man, gun companies are made up a bunch of idiots. I'm telling you right now.
Well, and I do think it's more important for us, we all have our likes and dislikes, but I think in a training perspective, if someone's going to ask us this question and we answer honestly, we want to carry something that they have access to.
Sure.
And give them reasons for doing so versus carrying an obsolete, eclectic, item, which I have plenty. I have some revolvers that are no longer in production that are outstanding, but yeah, it wouldn't be my carry piece.
Yeah. I'm pretty agnostic about, what guys carry. I will give you a hard time if you carry a Glock. I'm like, you're in the little mindless cult kind of thing. But other than that, but as long as it runs and you can shoot it, man, we got a lot more things to focus our attention on than, oh, why are you running a DA gun? Why, oh, striker gun will go off if you're carrying a appendix. Yeah, I don't, whatever. If you're safe and you can run it, more power to you.
That's what it boils down to, really, because people do get bent around the axle about what gear, and they get emotional about it.
Oh, so much, dude. I remember on TPI one time, some moron who didn't last long in TPI was saying, "Oh, if you don't carry a Glock 19, if you don't think you can conceal a Glock 19, you're an idiot." And I got on it. I went on and said, "Dude, one of the most important people in the world to me, my daughter can't carry a Glock 19 because her fingers are too short, and her job will not let that happen." And he left. He ended up leaving because the nice thing about TPI was always it was a self-cleaning oven, But I'm like, I never understood why the guy even felt the need to say that. What does it make you feel better about what you're carrying? I don't know. I don't know. I just think it's real funny. I mean, you get around to, you go to like Rangemaster Attack Conference, and I remember one time 2 years ago at the end, most of the instructors had already flown out, but a bunch of us were flying out Monday. So it was me, William April, John Holshin, Ernest Langdon, a couple others, I can't remember. We were just sitting for dinner. Well, did any of us care that each of us was carrying a different gun? Did it ever come up in the conversation? No. I don't know. It just, tell you what, that was a pretty safe restaurant.
I bet.
Well, hey, we're getting towards taking too much of your time, Cecil, but we have another what's your favorite color question, and that would be, what are your 3 favorite bands or musicians? And no judgment here. This is just a very important question on our show, because I say it is.
Well, here's the one thing that a lot of people don't know about me. The only thing that I ever would have given martial arts up for was music. My first love was actually music. Before I started doing martial arts, I wanted so desperately to be in a rock band. I took guitar lessons. I took bass guitar lessons. I took piano, and I suck. I couldn't carry a rhythm. I did not understand the musical notes. I couldn't do it. So I failed miserably at it. And so I retreated to the backup was the martial arts. So I'm a giant music nerd. Favorite bands, the Bodines, probably. I haven't enjoyed the last couple albums since one of the 2 co-founders left, because the thing I loved about that band was that you had 2 strong, completely different people, and that interaction with their music was interesting to me. But I still all their old stuff. Who else? The Ramones. The Ramones are always a super. I mean, they were. So I got into rock and roll. So I was 8th grade ish. So 77 probably. And I was that transitioning from just listening to whatever was on the radio to really going, what's rock and roll? So I had a couple of them, and the Rock and Roll High School had just come out, and I had that soundtrack, and that was like, oh my God. And I literally was probably the only guy in my high school who listened to the Ramones. Outside of my best friend, because I made him start listening to the Ramones. But such a great band, especially those first, 5 or 6 albums, just such a phenomenal band. All right, Springsteen, as mad and as ticked off as I get as his stupid political statements and attitudes, and I'll go, that's it. I'm never listening to him again. He's stupid. I'll come back because the music is just so phenomenal. That's number 1 for me. To this day, I saw him in concert. First time I saw him in concert was November of 1980. And to this day, that's still the best concert I've ever seen in my entire life. 4 hours of music, So probably Springsteen. I just wish he'd shut up. and just do music.
Interesting enough, I play with a guy. Well, I haven't played with him in a while. That actually auditioned for Springsteen's band
really?
several years ago, and of course he was a drummer, and he said you sit there and play with Bruce. He said it was incredible. He could have been the drummer just with his guitar, with his amazing rhythm, just his feel. So yeah, amazing musician, amazing songwriter for sure.
Yep.
Man, those are all cool answers, man. We just like to get to know you guys outside of the.
We could do the entire show on just me going through my favorite musicians
We'll have you
and
back.
artists and
Don't worry,
bands.
you'll be back.
Hey,
Don't worry about that.
Okay.
We could have you back for that because my brother and I, we've been so the bumper music on the show, I did all of that by myself with loops and the guitars and the bass and everything. But Eric is a great drummer too. We just haven't had time to pull him into it. So lately we've been sharing tracks over the internet. He's been recording at his house and I'm recording at mine. Actually, right before we came on here, I was working on some new guitar tracks.
That's cool. That's amazing. That's amazing that artists can do that now. You can be 1,000 miles apart and do that kind of stuff. That's amazing.
Yeah, we're 1,500 miles apart, and he'll send me his tracks, and I'll morph them and mix it into my music, and it's so awesome. I mean, it's nothing new to a lot of people, but at the same time, a lot of people don't know that most music these days is actually made like that. Not most, but there's way more than you think would be. I mean, I use this microphone, and I use this Mac that's sitting in front of me in GarageBand, and I do a ton of stuff with it. But yeah, we're looking forward to putting some more music out. But
cool.
What I was going to say is that we've been thinking about having an episode where Eric and I get to talk about music. So maybe we'll just to have you come in and join us because.
Such a nerd. I'm such a music
Cecil,
nerd.
we do not want to just spend all of our time on tactical stuff because we're not.
You shouldn't.
Yep.
You shouldn't because life's more important.
Musashi always spoke on making sure that you had art in your life, and so yeah, it's been a blast. Aaron's helped me a lot because even though I guess you could say I got paid a little bit, playing in some bands with Aaron, but Aaron's really the professional musician. And it's been a superb learning experience for me doing this, and it's been a blast doing this with Aaron.
Yeah, I'll send him an email or, a text. I said, hey, man, have you listened to the new mix? I'll send him back, hey, dude, you a-hole, haven't you listened to it? Dude, and he'll send me a text. Man, I'm driving. I'll download it here in a minute.
You took that tone, Aaron. It really wasn't that. I know.
I'm goofing off. I'm adding some. I'm taking some liberty with it.
You're telling a story the same way Craig Douglas tells stories about me.
Adds the voice.
Yeah, where it's sort of factual, but it sort of veers off however he feels like it needs to veer off at that moment.
Hey, it's creative license.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It makes it more interesting to the listener.
All right. Well, hey, I'm gonna rein this in, and we're gonna close it out. But I got just a couple quick things for you. Do you have any upcoming events that you'd like to announce over the air in the next couple months that you might want to put out just to let the public be aware of?
Sure. You can always check my website for my schedule, iacombatives.com. Nice sales plug, Cecil. Good job. But I got a couple. I'm in February. I'm in Oklahoma City, and I'm doing sort of I'm doing one day of the immediate action jiu-jitsu, but then the second day is sort of a new class. It's basically called contact pistol, and it's standing clinch, mostly a lot of standing clinch, but with some live fire too, and some UTM stuff. So I'm kind of excited about that one. I'm really hoping that works out the way I want. So That's a good one. I'm looking forward to that one. And plus, I get Brahms in Oklahoma City, so win-win. What else? In end of March in Iowa. In Iowa, yeah, I think in Iowa. No. Yeah, in Iowa. In Iowa, we're doing a class that Larry Lindem and Paul Sharp and I teach together called Dominating the Entangled Fight, which I love doing that class. I love that class. Just, it's sort of like Aaron will get this. It's sort of like a jazz band. You just start riffing, and then the next guy takes over, and then the next guy, and then you fall in after that one, and it's just
Improv.
Yeah, it's improv. It's great. I mean, we have a structure of the class and a basic curriculum, but what comes out of it, especially when we start getting into the EVOs and stuff, is very much of an improv type thing. And I love doing that class. That's a fun one. I'm up in your neck of the woods, guys. I'm in Spokane in July. So if you get a chance, come out.
Man, that stinks because I'm going to be overseas then. Darn it.
Well, I'm sorry, Eric. I won't.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Brian.
Yeah, there you go. There you go, Brian. You could email him afterward and tell him what he missed.
Well, hey, Cecil, I need to check exactly when you're going to be in OKC because, of course, I'm just right up the road. I'm about 90 minutes.
Oh, okay.
In Tulsa.
It's like February 15th, 16th, I think.
Okay. That's still in my heavy gig season, but I might be able to make it. So that's
That'd be awesome. Good. Be good to meet face to face.
Oh, yeah.
And we should have, and maybe not saying anything, not promises, but a certain person that and maybe train under might be there at the class too.
Oh, man. Very tempting now. As if you weren't good enough.
Well, I've been wanting him to see, because my stuff is so different than how I used to. I've never taught the same seminar twice. I've never taught it the same way twice. There's always something I can tweak. There's always something I think I can do better. On the flight home, every time I'm always writing down, well, maybe you should do this next time. So I really like Mike to see where I'm at, because I wouldn't be doing seminars without him. He's the first one who took a flyer on me. He's like, hey, dude, would you come do a seminar for us? Sure. If you want to listen to me, sure, that's fine. So I kind of really would like him to see where the material's at and stuff.
I just spent some time with him this week. I'm glad to have him around here for sure.
Yep. I was going to say earlier when you're talking about him running you through shooting, he's actually the guy who ran me through the 4-count draw stroke.
Oh, cool.
Even before Craig did, because I'd been through gun sight. I'd done all that stuff, but I'd been out of shooting for about 10 years. So as I was getting back into it, Mike was the one who said, hey, here's what we're doing now. And I'm like, cool. But it was in my hotel room in Tulsa, or in actually Broken Arrow, spending a few hours running me through all that kind of stuff. And honest to God, the stuff that he told me, a lot of the language that he used to teach it, I still use it when I teach it today.
Awesome.
Because he has that, he's got it so dialed in, and he understands how to get that across that I'll channel my inner Mike Brown every now and then.
Well, Cecil, if I can interject there, I would say that everything that I teach has its birth in Mike Brown's teaching that when I was studying under him.
Sure.
And guess what, guys? I just have to say this too, is when I was talking to him, I said, it's funny. On our show lately, we've got these guys from all over the country, and we all sit around and talk about you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great. Well,
he was one of the first guys to reach out to Craig when Craig first started teaching, first started doing the public thing. Mike Brown was one of the first guys to go, we need to do this stuff, and actually put his effort and money where his mouth was, and followed up with it way ahead of all these other Johnny-come-latelys to it.
Nice. Well, that is one of the things that we don't emulate to be part of the collective, but we want to bring that collective knowledge, at least to people's experience and then expose them to it, and also, of course, make them aware that there's much more out there and that they can come and do that stuff. So, again, just reiterate, you can find Cecil at iacombatives.com. That's Indigo Alpha Combatives.com. And there's a wonderful article on there where he talks about how much he sucked at jiu-jitsu. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring. You should read it. It's
that, and honest, that is not a Craig Douglas article. That is 100% truth.
Yes.
Too. There's no exaggeration in that article.
Nice. Well, before we just go ahead and put a cap on this, is there anything that you'd like to share before we close out, Cecil?
No, I'm glad you guys are out there doing this stuff. I've been hoping that there'd be, at some point, you throw the seeds out that people around the country start responding, going, yes, we see the need for it, and step up. All of us, Craig, myself, Larry, we're not spring chickens. There's only so much longer we can be doing this. And so we need the next generation to be out there passing on stuff and keeping people alive. So I'm glad you guys are out there doing that. And appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. And it's always fun to roll around in the dirt with guns and shoot sims, but I love the way that you guys present this. And like we were talking about earlier, the seatbelt, and it's like, we need to respect this and admire it for what it is. It's not something that we do for fun. It's something we do because there may come a day in your life where you actually need to use this. So that's what.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right. Well, hey, we appreciate your time so much, man. And this has been a great time, and looking forward to getting this edited and out on the air. So, Eric, Aaron, you guys?
Thanks a lot, Cecil. This has been an excellent show. Love the content. And we have so much fun when we do this, and when we do it with people that we respect and that we've learned from and that have contributed to our lives. We really appreciate your support. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely, dude. My pleasure.
Will you take it easy, Cecil?
I will. Thanks for having me on. See you guys down the road.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Hey, all right, guys. It's that time for accountability at the end of our show. So I'll go ahead and kick it off here and try and keep it brief. Last weekend, I went to another IDPA match, had a great time, had a pretty good match, and had a great time hanging out with my good buddy Dustin, who's a killer shooter himself. Hey, Dustin, shout out to you, buddy. Now, the great thing was that the lessons I've had under Mike Brown, they seem to be paying off. I worked quite hard on visualization between stages, of course, having been introduced to that and encouraged by Mike Brown in that. And, of course, on our last episode with Mr. Mike Seeclander, got a significant primer on that from him. So if you haven't heard that episode, guys, make sure you go back and listen to that. The main thing was that I was actually this time able to really slow my mind down and throttle back a bit. And in my scores, it really showed up. So had definitely a good match, one of the best matches I've had in a long time. Now, of course, it's always great to hit a IDPA match, right, guys? Now, for my cardio, I've been putting, killing two birds with one stone, hanging out with my son and getting some cardio in by still skating with him at the skate park down the street. Unfortunately, though, I did hurt my ankle somehow, and I'm nursing that now, so I haven't been able to skate in a while. My son's missing it, and so am I, but hopefully get back out there again soon. Now, I was able to hit 2 Combatives class at Gracie Jiu-Jitsu this week. Was glad to do that. Of course, like I've said, lately gigs have been holding me back a little bit and have kept me from going to the intermediate reflex class, but I'll tell you this, after my gig season is up here at the end of February, I'm going to start working really hard and studying and taking some privates so I can go ahead and get my Combatives belt and certification in Combatives. Now on to the drill of the week. I'll tell you what, I usually, of course, do three iterations of this drill and average them at least. but I was only able to, I think it was because I was running out of daylight, but I went ahead and did the drill. I was only able to do it once, but I was pretty stoked to come out with a 94 on that. And I have to admit, I've missed a couple of days of dry fire, but guys, I've got my pistol right here ready to go, and I'm going to go ahead and catch up on some dry fire when we get done here. So, hey, Brian, what did you get done this week, buddy?
Thanks, Aaron. Good work as always. And I got to tell you, I am really happy to be on the backside of these holidays because it just really disrupted all of my routine. And I'm so happy to kind of feel like I'm back in a normal groove again. Don't get it wrong, I enjoyed all the time with friends and family, but it really just blew giant holes in my training, and feeling good to just be back into a regular rhythm. So as per usual, I got my two early morning CrossFits in, and 2 jujitsus this week, and two lifting sessions this week. So I'm trying to make that my minimum, my 2-2-2. I was shooting for 3-3-3, and I had to dial that goal back. It was just too much. But one thing I definitely want to talk about this week is I've picked up a new dry fire training tool. I got one of the Next Level Training CERT guns. This is a basically size and shape replica of a Glock 17 that just fires a laser, but it works with all your Glock holsters, etc. And then again, I'm not necessarily endorsing this company yet, but Accelerated Firearm Training makes a module that will go in the CERT gun that reduces the laser emission to just a pulse instead of a steady laser. Because the way a CERT gun typically works is you pull the trigger on it and the laser stays on as long as you have the trigger pulled. This takes it down to just a pulse, and the same company, Accelerated Firearm Training, makes a little 3-inch by 3-inch receiver that produces a target that you engage. And I got 4 of these, and with their app, you can actually go through and like you're shooting actual course of fire. They're meant to simulate a 10-inch plate at 10 yards when you're 8 feet away from them, and of course you can get further away, but pretty neat little thing. The app's a little glitchy. I think they've got some work to do. Obviously these are some kind of import item, but they can tell where you hit the sensor. I've seen a few of these things on the market before where they make a little plate ring or whatever, and it's just sensing that you hit, the target area in general. These things can actually tell where you hit. So it's like a 16 by 16 LED grid that can sense the laser hitting it, so it actually knows where on that little square that you hit it. So anyway, something that has upped my dry fire game, because although I still dry fire with a real pistol, this is something that's just pushing me to practice my draw stroke and to get clean draws and to be able to see a time to first impact, so without having to go to the range only to do that. So anyway, pretty cool stuff. And as far as the drill, I did actually get to shoot the drill, and I got to be humble, man. I failed the drill. I did it about 4 times, and at that point I was like not going to keep chasing it. But the 3 shots, strong hand only, I could not get under 2.5 seconds. And now I know I could have gotten under 2.5 seconds, but I was not able to get under 2.5 seconds and make those hits count. Now, overall, it was under 10 seconds for the entire combined time. I got a 1.88 single draw, which was really cool for me. I mean, I know there's guys that can do that in like 9.6, but again, I am shooting a SIG 365 from concealment right now, at least for this drill. So again, very happy with those results. I have been pushing myself to shoot these drills with my carry gun or with a gun that I carry routinely, but that 365 has been my go-to appendix carry gun that I've been having on me most days. So anyway, that's enough out of me for this week, but really excited to be pushing that dry fire game a little farther than I used to. So I'll hand it off to you, Eric.
Thanks a lot, guys. And also, congratulations, Aaron, on your awesome job on the 5-yard roundup this week. So for my accountability this week, I had 3 dry fire sessions. I was focusing on target transitions, which we'll kind of hit on in the next drill of the week. I had 1 private jiu-jitsu session. That's what I could make this week with one of my good buddies and one of my coaches also, Aaron David. I had 3 cardio sessions and 2 upper body workouts, working on my pull-ups and my dips. I'm kind of focusing on increasing those. So kind of one of those things that I have been plateaued on, and I want to break it. So working on that. As far as the drill of the week, the 5-yard roundup by Justin Dial, I shot all of the strings in under par at 2.5 is the par, so I shot all under par. And I had 2 attempts, one at 89 points and one at 91. I will tell you, this is a tough drill. One of the things that was interesting to me, however, was that all my two-handed shooting, each time I check, because I want feedback on each string, I shot all of the two-handed shooting in the X and the 10 ring. But it was when I shot support hand only and strong hand only where my groups opened up. So that's the coolest part about doing these drills is it gives us feedback on what we need to work on. So clearly that is something that I started working on more after I shot that drill. So that was very enlightening for sure. So since we're discussing that drill, let's go ahead and prescribe the next drill of the week, which the 3 of us, Brian, myself, and Aaron, we decided that we would just prescribe a drill we think that people can use to improve, especially if they're competitive shooters. And I'll kind of hit on a concept that's kind of hard to understand when, you're just listening to this on a podcast, but it's something that you can, work on your own. Bottom line is that transitioning between targets, our eyes move faster than our arms. And I have to give credit to Mike Brown, who you guys hear us talk about a lot, but, he's one of the most important coaches for all of us, and especially back in the day when I was very competitive in IDPA. This concept he taught me and drilled me on for a long time, and it brought me to the next level. I count it as one of the 2 areas that really helped me the most. So regarding transitions, if you think about one target and you got a second target, once you've fired whatever prescribed shots are on that target, you're done with it as long as you follow through. Your eyes will then scan to the next target, and then your arms will move, not moving your eyes and your arms at the same time. Secondly, you got to think about your cadence as well. So a normal kind of, I'll just put it this way, a little more novice technique would be between targets would be bang, 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 bang. Instead, what we really want to aim for is 2 targets, 2 shots on each would sound like bang, 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 almost like 4 individual shots. Now, granted, it can't always be perfect depending on distance and distance to the target and distance between targets, but that's what you're aiming for. And that's what we're aiming for on this drill. So, that said, the EvoSec target transition drill will consist of 3 strings. The first one is start from a low ready, shoot 1 shot on T1, and 1 shot on T2. And I digress a second. This will be on either an IDPA target or an IPSC target. And the distance is 5 yards, and the 2 targets are 1 yard apart. So again, string 1 is from low ready, 1 shot on each, T1 to T2. You can choose the sequence, but stay consistent so it helps you measure properly. These are also center mass, the first 2 strings. So string 2 from the holster, draw and fire 2 shots on each, T1 and T2, center mass, or the down 0 zone. String 3 is a failure drill on T1. So you'll just simply draw and fire 2 shots to the chest, transition, 1 to the head. So the way this is scored is you're going to take the time from each string and total those 3 up. That's your total score, raw time. And you're going to add 1 second for every point down. So if you're -1, that's 1 second. Or if a shot's -3, that's 3 seconds. So that's it. Pretty simple. But I want you guys and gals to think about that transitioning the eyes first and then moving the arms, and then trying to set the cadence to where it's more like complete total strings of shots rather than just hammers or bang, 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 like I said before. So let's give that a try, and we'll all report back the next show. With that said, I think we're going to go ahead and close out the show tonight. Thank you so much for joining us with this, for this awesome interview with Cecil Burch. And we really appreciate you guys tuning in. So thank you for the support. You guys have a good evening and take care.